Y'all aren't running an executive, today, right? Okay. Yeah, I'll do it after,
Okay.
because I don't want to interrupt my.
Is it a Marvel one?
Does anybody need a copy of the agenda?
Oh, thank you. Chris.
Sorry.
Pick it up. Thank you.
He's paying for breast cancer after. But do you need to? I can run it. I can run it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I come to the courthouse and make money.
You know, you did it together.
No, I got
We're down there, they were just sitting there watching.
So you'll get one of these, and I'll email you. Like I have one for Monday already. So I'll email this to you. You haven't given her our time. Okay, so automatically, whenever it comes into my email, you have a chance to look at it, go through it and say, oh, well. When they go into executive session, you have to pull this whole setup out, because nobody can be. Yeah. Are y'all doing?
Something changed. Something's changed. It used to not be like that.
I swear they're not. I need a booster seat.
Yes, I am.
I mean, that gives you time to get out of the room. I usually just pick it up and get out of the room. It's a chair. Not sit there. Right. No, you could, as a matter of fact, you just push finish at the end.
I just assumed you do.
And one of them will call me anything was decided.
I just assumed.
They come back. Executive session, it's usually not. It's usually not. Hey, Jason.
Hey.
Good. Good to see you. This is Stacy. She's my new girl. You'll see her face a lot. She's a county girl.
Jim.
I think y'all's microphones ought to be color coded. Like everybody should get a different color. Oh. That's
Yeah,
it.
turn them on. I mean, yeah, but still, they're all the same, I think.
Yeah. I know where I sit. I did it.
Yep, bunch of-
Like I said, scrape it out.
Ready. Yes, sir.
It is 10:01, Friday, the 9th day of September, 2022. I make a motion that this special meeting of the Navarro County Commissioners Court come to order.
Seconding.
Motion made by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Moore. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And we are in session. Ask everyone to please stand for opening prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Let us pray. Father, we thank you for this day and the many blessings you give to each and every one of us. We ask your wisdom and guidance today as we deal with the matters of the county. We ask you to forgive us for the many ways that we may have failed you. It's in Christ's name that we pray. Amen. Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, you may be seated. Thank you. All right, first up is going to be the number 4, which is consideration of burn ban. For those of you who are not aware of it, I lifted the burn ban this past week, and but we need to approve that lift through the Commissioner's Court today. So within 7 days of when I lifted it. So I'd ask for a motion, gentlemen, to concur with my lifting of the burn ban.
I'll make a motion that we lift the burn ban.
Second.
I did my burn yesterday. I'm good to go.
Just in case.
Yeah, just in case. Yeah. Just, I didn't want anybody to throw a monkey wrench into the deal. Motion made by Commissioner Grant, seconded by Commissioner Perry. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 5 is public hearing on the tax rate. And 3 people have signed up to speak on that. Thomas McNutt, you are first, sir.
Yes, thank you, Judge. So I'm here to speak against the proposed rate, okay? But I'll preface, I just want y'all to know how much I appreciate each commissioner, y'all taking my individual phone calls. And I know I'm not here to say you have an easy job. I think you got one of the toughest, and not the toughest, elected official jobs in the county. You've got to be a appropriator, an executive, or legislator, run the barn, the whole thing. I know it's difficult. I don't think I could do a better job, you know, than y'all are doing. Same thing, Sheriff and Judge. I appreciate it. And so just please know that I've got tremendous respect for each of you. Nonetheless, I know there's been confusion, okay, on the rate, the appraisal, whatever. And I appreciated y'all unanimously tabling this rate last week. I appreciated that. But forget appraisals, rates, budget, whatever. What I said last time was true then, and it's true now. The state allows you, as the county, to collect 3.5% more revenue than you collected the year before. And then they cap it. And if you want more dollars than that much of a tax raise, more dollars, you got to take it to the voter. And what y'all have proposed is to break in as many new dollars as possible without having to go to the voter. And that is what I'm asking you to reconsider. There's the no new revenue rate. Anything above that is a tax increase. Then there's a 3.5% you're allowed to do. And so when you brag, oh, we lowered your rate, we lowered your rate. The state made you lower the rate. What I want is for y'all to be able to go out and say, we cut your rate. We cut. And the only way for y'all to say that in a fully genuine, everybody agrees way is to go with a rate that would be slightly lower than the 3.5. I'd love the no new revenue rate. I think that's what most folks would probably love. But I understand that expenses are up. So my one ask is that you just please consider some give in good faith, some compromise between the max that you're voting for. And then anything, any sort of give, man, I would appreciate it significantly, considering the very tough economic times that your constituents are in that may not get a raise this year. So thank you all very much. And that's what I'm asking you to do. Forgive me, I got important fruitcake meetings I got to get back to. So I am going to duck out early.
But I would like to say one thing in response to what you said.
Yes, sir.
I have not heard a person on here brag. I think that's important, that we're not bragging about anything.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think that sets a different tone when you say that we're bragging about it. We're not bragging about it. We wish we could cut it half. But I don't think that's a fair statement, is all I'm saying.
Well, James, Mr. Commissioner, I appreciate that, and I appreciated our phone call. I'm simply speaking to the sentence, we cut your tax rate. That's what I'm saying.
And that's a
When it-
true statement, but we're not bragging.
And what I'm saying is the state forces you to cut the tax rate.
That's right.
And that's why it's that weak. So, but I appreciate it, Commissioner. And that is my ask, that you not adopt, you vote against today, the proposed rate, do something less as a measure of good faith. Sorry to be so long-winded. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Chris Woolsey.
Judges, Commissioners, again, like Thomas said, thank you all for postponing the vote from last week to this week. I think making sure everyone was on the same page with the corrected information was important. And so what I'm speaking to today, again, is the tax rate, just as Thomas did. And so my ask is that you adopt the no new revenue rate. The no new revenue rate represents a number that will collect the same dollars from the same people as last year and does not increase taxes on people who have already been living in the county. All it does is realize new revenue from growth in the county. So if you vote for the no new revenue rate, you will gain, according to your, I did the math from the tax rate calculation worksheet, it's about $470,000 to $500,000 that you can gain by not raising taxes. And so the difference from the no new revenue rate to the increased voter approval rate is a little over $1 million. And so what I'm asking you is to vote for the no new revenue rate, and the county will gain more money than it did last year, just due to the growth of the county. And so what that'll do is it provides a win-win for the county and for taxpayers in the county, because existing taxpayers will not pay any additional money, and the county will gain between $470,000 and $500,000 new dollars just from the growth of the county. And so that is my ask of y'all, is to vote for the no new revenue rate, protect the taxpayers and realize that new growth. So like I said, this is just over a little over $1 million that we're asking you not to collect on top of what it was last year. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Jim Howard.
Good morning. Thank you all very much for serving our county, and it's our county, and we're taking good care of it, in my opinion. We all have wishes and desires on how we want to spend our money, that sort of thing. I don't have any criticism today at all. I've not been to many meetings, and especially in the last few years. But I did want to compliment you. I do agree with the no new revenue tax rate. I think that would be huge for you to set an example for the counties around us also. I did read and study the budget some, and the one thing that I've asked and had very positive results with is talking to the county auditor. When I see pie charts or graphs or things like that, and I hear, I read that we're going to have a raise of this kind and a raise of this kind that is deserved. There's no problem with that. But it would be, in my opinion, very helpful if a pie chart says 58% of the budget is spent on personnel. And I think the auditor was very forthcoming to that. All I had to make was one phone call, and she said, well, we got 347 plus employees, and if we give a raise, it would be nice to know that if 126 people in that pie chart or graph of who we're raising $2,000, if we just say it's 126 people times $2,000. I think that would be great information, and it may be out there somewhere. I'm sorry, I just haven't read it. And then the other thing is when we talk about law enforcement staff and things like that, they're well deserved of what they get, and I'm glad we can pay them more. But if we say there's 143 people involved at $3,500, it gives people a real realization of what that means. You know, we're talking about $500,000. So between the two, it's $750,000 if I'm reading those charts and graphs correctly, according to the information about the number of employees. In my reading about this and through the auditor's office, I realized that we actually have people on the payroll that I didn't even realize were part of the county budget. So it does include quite a few people. There's 78 people here, according to the figures of 347 plus. There's 78 people that I can't see that are accounted for in a raise. So, you know, I'm not questioning that. I'm just commenting that if you read a graph and you put the numbers to it, then where are the other people, and do they get a raise or do they not, or they don't qualify or whatever. So I'm just asking that you make the budgets a little clearer in that respect. And again, I don't have any criticism for you. I wish you had an easier job in law enforcement. I can't imagine what they go through. But thank y'all very much for listening to me, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Okey doke. No one else signed up to speak, but I'll open it up and say, does anybody else want to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Just quickly, I mean, I agree with Thomas and Chris, especially Chris mentioning the growth. We're part of that growth. You know, we've been here a year and a half, and you can't, I know that it's exploded. I was fortunate enough to protest my appraisal and win and stuff, because it went up, thank you, it went up it more than doubled. But I agree with, a lot of people fought to get that, you know, that tax rate when the city council voted on it. So it seems like, I mean, that's what I would like to say, that I agree with them at that rate is good. And we still have more growth to grow. I mean, over the next 5 years, you know, just, there is going to be so much more revenue. So that's all I'm going to say.
All right. Anybody else? Sheriff, got anything you want to add?
I think I'm good today so far.
Well, the good thing that, and I'll speak for him to some degree, the amount of money it costs to run that operation that's across the street will blow you away. You have no idea what it takes to make you safe. If that jail has to close, you just think taxes are high, because paying to keep those prisoners somewhere else is phenomenal. Okay, we can keep them cheaper ourselves for the most part. So that's part of our deal, though. He's short 25 people. That is 25 employees. I don't know about y'all, but that's quite a chunk. And most of them in the jail, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
So when you have that sort of thing you're looking at, you better be trying to build to keep what you got and hope that you can hire. That's another one of the reasons that we increase those salaries. Hire the people it's going to take to keep that jail functioning. No other city in Corsicana, I mean, in Navarro County has a jail. In case anybody knows that or doesn't know that. City of Corsicana has 3 little rooms over there. Last time I saw it, it's full of bicycles. That was their jail when they built that place over there. And they certainly don't want to have to open up anything. So we are the designee, if you will, of keeping prisoners and people who are charged with something, whatever it may be, whether it's a misdemeanor, felonies, no matter what it is, how bad it is, or anything else. And in a lot of cases, they are people waiting over there to go to prison. But there's no place for them, because the state hadn't built enough beds or facilities to take them there. So guess who gets to keep them? We do. You do. You're paying that bill. It ain't cheap, folks. You're paying for their medical, their dental, whatever it goes happens. Can remember back about 16 years ago when there was someone who got into a fight and his jaw was broken, and it was going to cost $36,000 at that point in time to fix his jaw. Guess who had to pay for it? Taxpayers of Navarro County. So you have to understand that, we may be, it may seem like but we're not. We fret over every dime we spend. We look at everything it costs and try to do the best we can with the money that we have to work with. Okay? Yes, sir.
I see the rate that y'all want to vote on is 0.5173. I heard these folks talking about the other one, the zero revenue, whatever that is. What is that number? They didn't say it.
I don't know what
Does
it
anybody
is.
know what this is?
Point
4955.
Okay, just less than five.
4955.
Yeah.
Okay. So the difference, if you guys don't want to do this, the other is 0.4955.
Apparently.
Or in
something
between, or in between.
Okay. Thank you. They didn't mention that number. I just.
But therein, what I'm trying to get over to you, the importance of what we're doing is for that jail over there. It's also for the court systems that we have here. Y'all don't know it. We've got 3 courts in this building. I'm one of the judges. Lagomasino's the district judge, and Judge Putman is the one for the county court at law. We're busy. People would quit committing crimes, we wouldn't have a job. Right? That's true. But we have to have court systems, part of the Texas Constitution, and we have to maintain them. We have to have the personnel in them that get the job done, if you will. And then the clerks who keep all the records. It goes on, and you look at it and you go, oh my goodness, look what this is costing. What is the jail cost? Back again, you recall, Terry?
For the total sheriff's department for 22, the jail to date is at $5,241,232.29.
Okay.
And that's with 72 positions and 17 of them are vacant in the jail. Now that's just the jail alone. The sheriff's department alone is $4,034,191.78. That's with 49 positions and 7 of those are vacant.
So you can see what we're up against. We're trying to hedge against a closure ever happening over there across the street. We're trying to do our job, and that is be able to fund and keep people who, for example, could just go up the road a piece and get a $10,000 raise. They wouldn't be here anymore. Then we have to start training new people. Here that all starts over again.
If you could find.
If you can find them, because a lot of them, there's one of the reasons I wanted the sheriff to visit on this, because he's right in there when it happens. A lot of people that come in and apply for a job here, the question comes up, you ever use drugs? Oh, no, never used drugs. And then they find out he had. Well, they've lied. Besides having committed a crime at some point in time, they've lied about it. So guess what? They're out. You don't get to do that. And it's extremely hard finding people who haven't at least smoked marijuana at some point in time in their life. But then they'll lie about it and say, no, I never did it. So anyway, that's part of it. Guys, didn't mean to.
Well, I've created this game called Did You Know? Because I'm gonna tell you, 6 years ago, I was sitting out there and I didn't know. But what I found out was the Navarro Hotel over there that our sheriff is a great manager of, they mandate if we have X amount of prisoners, we must, and you shall, that word shall is very important on everything that we get from Austin. You shall provide this many employees in the jail. Okay, and when the jail employees numbers fall, because they said, man, I'm not doing this, man," they leave. Well, he has to pull a deputy off patrol to go in there and stand in to make the numbers jive, so the state don't shut us down. Everything that we do has a shall in front of it from the state. And I can appreciate that, but I said this last Monday, that when the state sneezes down there in session, we catch a cold. Because they'll come up and say, you shall provide this service, you shall provide this, you shall, but we're not sending any money that way. And so what it does in our budget, when we start budget session out, all of these shalls that come from Austin, they're the nucleus of the budget. Because they're not optional, they're shalls. And for us to stay in good standing with the state, we perform these shalls. Then we start filling in the wants and needs around that, around the number that the appraisal district gives us. And they say, here's your number for the year. Don't spend it all in one place, just like an allowance. We do not have ways to raise revenue like the cities do. We are here to provide services and spend tax dollars. Okay, and I don't know how easier that I've learned in 6 years. This is what happened. Every year we go through this process because every year we have growth in the county. And we've had exponential growth this year with almost $1 billion more in taxable assets than we had last year, which I call that, we've done a great job in inviting businesses in here and the economic growth around the lake, where they'll take 200 acres of a farm that's ag exempted, break it up into lots. And now then there's $200,000 lots that wasn't paying taxes last year. That's where this money comes from a lot of times, along with the new businesses. Appraisals, yeah, appraisals go up. I successfully went out and fought mine. I was prepared, and I didn't go out there using vulgar language and telling them what they're going to do and what they're not going to do. No, it was a debate and I won. And so I effectively lowered my taxes myself by getting my taxes reduced to what they were last year. So with the new tax rate, I have a tax decrease because I did my due diligence as a property owner and as a citizen. And remember, everybody up here, we're taxpayers too. We don't want to raise our own taxes. We're not that masochist, but sadistic to ourselves. But in the same breath, we were elected to operate this county. And as businessmen, we have to set a realistic budget. We have to set a realistic tax rate that is sustainable. And at this point in time, everything we've done so far, the budget is still in the red. So it's not like we're just rolling in money and we're just begging for more money and we're just trying to hose the citizens down. We're trying to keep this thing as conservative as possible. We're trying to do the best job we can with what we've got to work with. And I don't know what else to say. If you knew what went on behind the curtain, it'd blow your mind. Because like I said, we could go into this did you know game, and it's an eye-opening experience to get behind the curtain at the county and see what all happens and what it takes to actually make this whole machine work efficiently with the amount of money that it takes. Because with the growth of the county, the growth of the courthouse. And I tell everybody, you get married on the first floor, you get divorced on the second floor. Okay, and that's a service that we provide. The money they collect at the clerk's offices, about 99% of it goes to Austin. And I heard that the state comptroller said they had a $40 billion surplus at the state this year, not counting the rainy day fund. That's who we need to be getting. So that's time to share the love, brother. Okay, it's time to start sharing that 40 billion back with the people, because that's taxpayers' money. Just like the money that we deal with down here. It's not our money, it's taxpayers' money. And I'm a taxpayer, so I want to be the best steward that I can be. And the responsibilities that we've been entrusted with. And I know a lot of times it's not popular, the things that we have to do. But it's the way it takes to make things work. And sometimes you gotta eat your spinach. You know, you can't just eat cake and ice cream all the time. And I gotta eat my spinach. And so, anyway, we're doing the best we can. And I appreciate Chris and I appreciate Thomas and Jim and the others that spoke. But here, we have to be here in the real world, like the country song says, here in the real world, we have to deal with real things. And like I said, the sheriff's not over there squandering money. He's over there doing the best job he can, and he's cutting costs to keep the costs down so that we can lower the tax rate, because that's the whole goal. Into growing the county is to lower the tax rate, so the burden is not put solely on so many people. It gets spread around. And so outside of that, I'm sorry I'm long-winded, but when my mind gets in gear and I like to play Did You Know, this is things that I've learned. And I won't be here forever. None of these men will be here forever. And I think here in the courthouse and in the jail, we've got a good crew who's managing the funds good and correctly, and they're being physically responsible with these things, and we're doing just what's necessary to keep it going. And sometimes that's not good enough. So having said that, I'll leave the floor.
Thanks,
Judge,
sir.
can I say one thing?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm the county clerk and I issue a marriage license, birth certificate, and death certificates. And when I came into office, I had the option of going into each vendor and getting the best price. Well, about 6 years ago, the state said, we can't do that anymore because by identity theft, we've got to have birth certificates that have all these extra things on there so people can't do identity theft. So the state went out, they get a vendor, and every county clerk has to buy from that vendor, and it's expensive. But I can't issue a birth certificate or a death certificate on a plain piece of paper. It's against the law. I can't do it. And I also have to send $1.80 for every birth certificate I issue to the state. I get $21 for a death certificate, and I get $23 for a birth certificate. And I have to send $1.80 on the birth certificates to the state. And that's just like a couple of years ago when the driver's license said, everybody gets a new driver's license renewed, you have to get a birth certificate. They didn't tell us they were gonna do that. And I had my budgets fixed, so how much I was gonna spend on that birth certificate paper. In the middle of the year, I had to order more paper because we had people coming in from everywhere getting their birth certificates. So that's just a little piece of things that happens that y'all don't know that happens.
Yes, ma'am.
Now I'm ready, whenever I get my turn.
Oh, you're ready?
Now I'm ready.
All right, let's let this lady speak first.
But at the same time, we're charging, you're getting more people paying for those birth certificates. Isn't that awesome? And the other thing
But
is
we don't get to make money. We just kind of break even.
well, that's fine. But at the same time, you weren't losing more just because you're getting more, issuing more. And I think the thing is that I think you're right. It is y'all's responsibility to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money, and I think you do try. But it's also, as taxpayers, our responsibility to question, things and make sure, because things are not always on the up and up, not intentionally, and but we all have our own agendas. So I think it's important that we're speaking up too.
We do too.
Sure.
We do that.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is that, I believe you, because that's why this is an open forum and you're allowing people who haven't signed up to speak. So I think that's true. The other thing is though, like you said, the little game that you play, I was curious because something I didn't know. After people have gone through the court and their trial and everything, and it's been adjudicated. So if we're holding them prisoners and we're waiting for openings to become the state level where we can send the prisoners off because they've been deemed to be guilty. Is there, and this is something I don't know, is there any reimbursement for us holding those? There's none. There's a little bit.
It
Yes,
don't
there
cover.
is. Yes, there is, but today, out of the $218,000 that we have spent so far on 2,946 days of 128 prisoners, we've only received back from the state to date, $8,582.
Wow.
And that's it.
That's good.
And they got 40 billion down there in tax money.
Exactly, and they bragged
I
about
did
that.
see that.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was just curious, that it probably is out there, and y'all might even set it, that speaking of the pie chart, what is the budget been over there for maintaining the prisoners in the sheriff's department? What percentage of the pie? I'm sure it's out there here.
60 something, 68.
Right at 70%.
Yeah, right at 70%.
Wow, okay, thank you.
Sheriff,
Can I say something real quick, Albert?
yeah,
before you-
yeah, go ahead.
I probably don't need to say this because it sounds silly and childish. But unfortunately, in the era of social media, I feel like I need to clear something up because I don't like misunderstandings and I don't like things to be taken wrong. Because sometimes people get on social media and say things that when they don't know what they're talking about. And I just wanted to get this off my chest. So Elmer is a great sheriff. And I've supported him from day one and will continue to. He runs a good office and he maintains a tight budget. And what Thomas said about us having the hardest job as elected officials, I'm not going to disagree with him because it's tough, but the sheriff's right there with us. But more importantly than any of that, what I just said, he's my friend and he has been for over 30 years. And I don't appreciate anybody insinuating anything any different. And I'm not talking to anybody in here. I'm just saying, I don't appreciate anybody saying otherwise. And as far as I'm concerned, that's the most important discussion that I'll have in here today.
Okay, sure.
Mine's gonna be real brief. There's a lot of emphasis put on today here about the jail, the corrections, the budget, and how your tax dollars are being spent across that street. There's a lot of merit to that. The correctional business is very expensive. I will clarify one thing to you. If you don't understand it, if you've never heard it, what the correctional facility belongs to the commissioners. Commissioner's Court. I'm the manager for that facility. So understand that that's a work in progress. It means that I work with these guys, I answer to these guys. The state has, as they've said, there's a mandated amount of correctional officers that must be there per inmate. And as far as the financial aspect of this, I've been the sheriff for almost 10 years. I am prepared at any point in time, if anyone wants to challenge my record as far as fiscal responsibility, including today, about how the money's spent, your tax dollars are spent over there. As one of the commissioners said, pull the curtain back. I can be eye-opening if you want me to open your eyes. This ain't the place, this ain't the venue. I stand proudly on my track record of being the sheriff and exceptionally proud of my record with fiscal responsibility of your taxpaying dollars. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
In reference to what the sheriff said, after working for Elmer for several years, there are so many unexpected expenses that come up. For instance, a couple of years ago, the kitchen, there was water standing and things like that. What did that end up costing Elmer? 80, 100, something $1,000 that no one even knew was coming. So that's one of the unexpected things that happen across the street, and it's a difficult job, anything over there.
And guess how they found that out? Jail inspections, state jail inspections. You shall fix this kitchen. And if you on social media, you're misinformed. If you're not, you're uninformed.
James, anything?
I got a couple of things to say here. First of all, thank you for being here. For those that were here last time, I apologize for the confusion. I know that was a pretty tough morning for us all, wasn't it? There was some information that was put out that was wrong, and some action responded to that information, which I think really got a lot of people up in arms and upset. Those numbers have changed, though. Some of you in here may not be familiar with that, it was published that we had a 5.09% increase in our tax rate Well, it's actually a 14.2% decrease in our tax rate. And that 5% increase was described in the Carson County Daily Sun as being massive. We had a massive increase in our taxes, but it was a mistake.
That
Now,
that a 5-minute phone call would have cured, by the way.
And my question is that 14.42% decrease going to be called massive by our media? Because that's how it was described, what was described. And that brings me to this. There's kind of two sides to this situation. I'm a little disappointed that we have been compared to the city of Corsicana. And I know with you being on the board down there, that it's hard to, Chris, I know you're speaking as an individual. It's hard to separate that. And I guess it's because you have the information because you are part of the city of Corsicana. You were able to compare us with Corsicana. And you did compare us to Corsicana. And we've always tried to work with the city. We want the public to see us working together because we work for you. But to compare us to the city of Corsicana is like apples and oranges. Because it's already been talked about here today, how we have mandates sent back to us, sent down to us. We also have our revenue basically comes from taxes, only from taxes. There's some fees when you come to the clerk's office to replace the cost of that paper, but ours comes from taxes. The other day, I got a water bill from the city of Corsicana, and I'm not doing this to criticize Corsicana. That's their business. I'm doing it to defend us being compared to Corsicana. I got a water bill the other day, and on top of taxes, I also pay a street improvement fee. Well, see, there's a different source of revenue, and they can say, oh, we didn't do this with our tax rate, but they fail to say that they now are charging a street fee. And so when you compare us to them, it isn't, I don't think that's apples to oranges, and I don't think it's fair to compare that. And again, I want to repeat this. I've lived in Corsicana 70 years, and so I love Corsicana. And I'm not criticizing them. I'm just defending us being compared to Corsicana. Since 2018, the county tax rate has dropped 17.5%. Since 2018, the city tax rate has dropped 15%. This year, the county is dropping its tax rate 14.42%. The city is actually dropping theirs 13.5%. So when you compare us, I think, and we have been compared to, I think we compare pretty good, pretty good. Now, the other side is, yes, taxes are too high. They are. And I have heard you. Last time everybody came, there was a big group here. We certainly heard you, and that's fine. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to come talk to us. And everybody at this table knows that I have recommended a lower tax rate in our meetings. I have recommended a lower one, but no one agreed with me. And also, everybody at this table knows that I voted against the budget. And I voted against the budget mainly because I thought that that the raises of the ones at this table were too high this year. And so maybe contrary to what y'all heard me say all morning, if we can do that, I think we need to give the taxpayers a break. I think that we can do that if we can afford to do that. Not that that would not make up the difference, because it would not. But if we have the mentality that we can give ourselves that much raise, I certainly think that we can give the taxpayers a break and do lower than what's proposed. I would go so far as saying no new revenue rate. Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Yes, so did the city collect less revenue, tax revenue this year? Is that what the rate's gonna be? I believe that was the whole thing, is that they lowered.
I don't know. I don't work for the city. I work for the county. So I don't.
All I know is they dropped their tax rate by 13.5%.
But I understand
That's
they
what
cut two positions out that were 100,000 each.
Rate means nothing as far as money,
Okay,
okay? It's what you collect.
No,
yes, sir.
No new revenue is no new revenue.
same revenue as last year is what it amounts to.
Exactly. Not to say you're not making more, you're not bringing in more money.
Right.
Because of growth.
Got it.
And one of the things that we've been doing for years in economic development is fighting the issues where everybody around us, well, to some extent, say north toward Dallas, had a lower tax rate than we had. So in trying to lure companies to come locate here and provide more jobs, buy houses, whatever, build houses, whatever they need to do to actually build our economy up, we just had to deal with, the fact that it was hard to cut our numbers down. And then the state came out with their deal saying, thou shalt not exceed 3.5% without, some degree of penalty for it if you do it. And so everybody buckled down, looked and tried to limit everything, all the spending that we could, but you still have so much that you've got to spend and you want to keep your employees. Okay? You don't want to, all of a sudden, they're taking off and going north to try to find or get their job, a better job. Well, it may not be a better job, but for more money, $10,000, $20,000, whatever it might be, because it happens all the time. So raises have to be part of the plan every year. We have to look at it realistically at what we need to do to make sure we keep our employees here. And as far as what elected officials get, I was told from the get-go in Austin, Texas, is you do not cut yourself out of raises, because after a while, the people that are working for you are going to make more money than you make. Duh. That'd be a terrible thing to have happen.
Well, I can understand from your position, it would be.
Yeah.
But we've done that.
Yeah, we have
We've
done
done
it.
that 4 times, not giving out raises, but not ourselves.
Yeah, sure have. Yeah. But anyway. All right, anything else? Anybody else want to speak? Want to say whatever? I'm looking, going once, going twice. Yeah, Jim.
Well, to me, the hardest solution to this situation of revenue and growth and money coming from the state is that it takes legislation to get that money from the state back to the county. And therefore, the harder the state or federal makes that representation or election referendum, the more impedance or the harder it is, discourages 6,000 of us from calling our state legislators and having a meeting between 20 counties, hosting it here, to speak out nationally through the media about what we're facing on not having matching funds, some kind of reimbursement program from these large funds that are obviously being held by the state. So, you know, I don't have the answer to how to do that, but if we could figure out how to host some kind of a meeting that if it's either just virtual, to see what other counties think about having their revenue returned from the state, might cause enough commotion to get some kind of referendum in front of the bill in front of the state legislature.
It could, but when all that was going on last year, or in the last 2 years, and I called our rep, I never got a reply back.
Well,
I didn't talk with our senator at that time because he wasn't our senator at that time, but regardless. That's where people need to call. That's where people need to go. When those guys go into session, y'all would gang up and go down and just say, hey, we want to visit with you about all this. You know, this $40 billion of tax money that y'all got just floating around down there in their banks or whatever, wherever, however they keep it. Why couldn't it come back to the counties? You know, you cut them out to where they can only gain 3.5%. Give them some money for the stuff like the sheriff's office to try to make it where we can operate correctly instead of, you know, sitting here squeezing every dime that we've got, which we have to do. We always do it anyway. But yet it's up to y'all too. It's not up to just us, because I try.
it takes some strong individuals
Yeah.
to get that together. We had that situation in the past with the county court of law.
Yep.
We've had that with other situations where we went to Austin and worked with the legislators and made it pretty obvious that there's groups that want to support them
Yeah.
or defeat them in an election. And it makes a difference. Did the county court of law ever have a referendum to establish it? Other than the one that was turned down by
no, we-
74% of the vote.
That has been so long ago, Jim. I can't remember exactly how all of it came out, other than,
I remember right, there was legislation that allowed for it.
yeah, Byron,
To be created
Yes,
outside of the
yes.
vote.
right.
That was a
yeah.
problem.
And right now, we're looking at the potential for needing another district court. Well, the state pays for that.
Yeah.
Okay, but we don't have a place to put them. So, you know, here we are, growth. You know, we are growing, the county's growing. It didn't grow by all that much, but, you know, with our location is very conducive to crime, okay? Back and forth between the major cities of Texas, between us and Houston, Dallas and Houston, and, you know, we're here in the middle of it. It happens, just happens. You can read it. Remember the stuff that went on just south of us in Freestone County, the officer that was killed, those kids that were killed by some bozo that went in, broke into a house and killed the owner. And it's here, it's all around us. Okay, I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just saying the sheriff and his organization helps to keep that under control in as much as possible. Well, it ain't free. It costs us money to do it. And so it's just one of those deals that it'd be nice if the state helped us out. Ooh, it would take just give us, you know, maybe one of those billion. But that's not gonna happen. You know.
Our land area in this county is big.
Yeah.
And there is representation through TAC who talks to the legislatures. It's not that nothing's done. It's just, like you said, individuals might be effective also, but we have representation that when we have issues about different things like the money, our legislatures, they do know. But the citizens speaking in their ear, you know, is pretty effective.
Mike, you need to say anything? Give you opportunity if you need.
Afraid it won't be able to stop.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Very good.
I
Keep
want
on.
to say something, thanks, Jim.
Go ahead.
First off, I want to publicly thank all of y'all and the sheriff and Sherry and Mike, and especially Terry and Natalie with the auditor's office for all y'all's hard work on this budget. This is the worst part of the job. I'm telling you, it stinks. And it's stressful. And it's a fine line between doing what's just and what's responsible because of so many of the unknowns. That's the hardest part, is you just don't know what could happen. And if we do what someone wants us to do in here today, somebody will say, oh, them stupid commissioners. And if we don't do what they want us to, we come up short at the end of the year, all the stupid commissioners, it's hard to come out looking good either way. But I do know that there is a tax burden on the citizens, but I also don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize the safety of our citizens or the services that we're able to provide. And we not only have a duty to not let that happen, we also have employees that we have to take care of as well. So I don't want to do anything that's going to affect the public safety or the services we provide or what we're able to do for our employees. But I do want to do something. I think there's some room to do something. So I've been talking to the city manager over at Corsicana several times, and she's assured me that the city of Corsicana would not be seeking any money from the county for the budget year of 2023 for the ambulance service. We have $1 million in our budget for the ambulance service. So I'm for lowering the tax rate, however it would apply to this $1 million, and I can't figure that out in my head. I got a Blooming Grove education. No offense, David Brewer.
He's from Dawson, don't worry.
But I, like I said, I don't want to put anything in jeopardy because of the unknowns, but we do have $1 million there that we can work with. And I'm willing to do that. And like I said, I don't know what that equates to, but somebody in here probably.
I did
does.
some quick math.
I bet you did.
And that's $1,174,450. And if we went to the no new revenue, that would cost us about $813,000, which would actually take $361,000 off of our budget deficit, if the math is right.
Well, I have one, we have to do a budget amendment because I did not get the appraisal district's budget in time when we adopted the budget. And that cost is not in our adopted budget right now, so we would have to take part of that $1 million for the ambulance service to pay the appraisal district. Our total for the appraisal district this year is $487,786.
How much?
$487,786 that we have to pay the appraisal board.
And the city of Corsicana pays how much?
$195,000.
400.
That's their adopted budget. They didn't adopt until.
Do they not have a deadline?
They do, but once we get the adoption of it, it's got to be approved by all the boards, all the cities, and everybody. So
What that means then is that our budget deficit would go up about 100 and something plus $1,000 if we took out the EMS, if we went down to no revenue.
yeah, the
Right.
new revenue rate.
And paid that, that would make us probably less than $200,000 added to the current
Mhm.
budget deficit.
Because with the no new revenue rate, we would only bring in $627,000. That's it. This year. In taxes.
Additional.
That's it, yes, addition, that's it.
Well, you said that the city of Corsicana has to pay part of the appraisal.
They only pay $195,000.
Our
I
part.
was just curious, to the other cities like
Yes, ma'am.
Dawson
Yeah.
have to pay, so that is,
Yes, ma'am.
so.
All the taxing.
What
and-
did you
This
say?
is only our part.
Did you add it?
Out of $1,746,000.
Yeah.
So,
So I hear a 0.50 instead of the 4995. Instead of the 51, whatever, I hear a compromise of a little over 5. Just making that up.
Like I said, my only concern is the unknowns. We don't know how many people are gonna be in jail in 8 months. Or how many of them are gonna be sick, or how many times the state's gonna say, we don't have room for them down here to keep them. You know, you have to consider that. But I think there's room in there for compromise.
All right, what do y'all want to do?
Thank you, Jason. I mean, I can kind of see what Jason's saying, by all means. I mean, I'm a taxpayer myself. But we also have a $3 million deficit. And there's no telling, what gas is gonna cost next year. There's no telling how many drug raids we're gonna have. People are in there. I would love to cut everything, but I, as Jason said, would want everything to make sure we can pay for it. That's my thought.
Yeah, the tax rate will have to be sustainable. I mean, we have to be able to operate without going insolvent, so to speak. Because down at my shop, if we don't make enough money, you put in your job application at Guardian Glass, because you ain't here no more. And I don't want that to happen to the county. We're pretty much insolvent, if you may, if we were a bit, I mean, that would make us poor stewards. But we will do whatever it takes to, I say we represent the people who elected us, and we do your will. And so I agree.
so are you saying 5173? What was Eddie saying? 5173? Are you saying 5173?
I'm thinking if there's room to wiggle with them, if we'll use $1 million, if that's sustainable. Because there's no telling what the city of Corsicana is going to do to us next year. Because year before last it was 1.2 million.
That, I said that about 2023. Now, I don't know about 2024. All that could change because and probably will, because right now that ambulance service is being able to use Corsicana's ambulances. Those ambulances aren't going to last forever. So, we say, well, yeah, we can do something now, but 2024, we don't want to be back in here again saying, oh, we got to go up on tax rate because we got to buy some ambulances.
And that may not be the service you want to use in 2024.
That's true. And people will forget everything we did.
They won't remember today. Yeah.
So there's, somewhere in between there's probably some safety, but those ambulances ain't gonna run forever.
And I hate to eat our seed corn. That's an old farmer's adage when you'd harvest your corn, you kept enough to plant next year. It ain't like that now because you get the Monsanto control. And my daddy always told me, don't eat your seed corn. You got to have enough to plant next year or you're going to have to go out and buy it. And so if we eat our seed corn down here at the county, just like any other business, we haven't done ourselves any service. We haven't done our taxpayers any service either to get a temporary feel good. And it's a long-term misery. So I think somewhere between the no new revenue rate and the VAR, the voter approval rate, I think is sustainable as long as Terry's shaking her head.
You've got the cost of your health insurance that have gone up for all your employees. That $2,000 across the board, if you take it off, that's only a 98-cent raise. And that means you need to take off the raises for the sheriff's department of the $3,500.
So now you hear what our financial advisor. And like I said, it's,
We did away with all the raises.
What?
What's that?
Don't you have a fund balance reserve?
Yes, we do.
What's the size of that? In case you do run into a situation because you budgeted in the red.
James, what was that rate you suggested? a while back.
So the ending fund balance would only be, for the general fund alone, is 8 million. But I have to have for personnel to keep the county going, at least so far this year, we've already spent 24 million. So 1/4 is only 8 million. So there eats up your fund balance right there in case something happens.
Is it a mandate?
No, but it's safe practice.
Is it a rainy day fund?
No, it is not a rainy
Okay.
day fund. That is a safe practice. Otherwise, you're gonna have to shut the whole county down.
Okay, but it's a
Basically.
buffer monies. Okay. That's
But in my 34 years, we never shut the county down.
right.
I've never been aware of any time that there's been a critical incident that depleted that fund. It's never been depleted that I'm aware of. And I'm not an auditor. I'm not striking out as the auditor. I'm certainly not striking out as the commissioner's court,
We've had it dropped all the way down to 3 million at one
down
time,
to 3 million.
and that was in 07.
Right. I
And we had
remember
to
it.
take that 7.5% cut.
That was another depression or recession. at that time, too.
All I'm saying is, you're not insolvent. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not saying one way or the other, you got a tough job, I understand. But apples are apples.
And we don't want to be insolvent. And we don't want to be insolvent.
Absolutely.
And that's where the fine line is between the temporary feel good and the long-term misery if you make the wrong decision.
Yes, sir.
Just a question. I've heard since I've lived here almost 10 years now, that there is this constant struggle between the counties and the state. And this morning I've heard real dollars talked about here. And we've only received $8,000 for the jail from the state. And I assume it should be $200,000 we should receive from the state at this point. Is there a list somewhere that you guys have to show where those problems are constantly happening? And then let's get active to go get our state rep and our state senator involved in this and say, we're dying here. You got $40 billion. The governor's already said at least half that should go back to the people. I've been involved, it should go back to the people, but that's just me. Is there some way we can get a
We
list
don't,
together?
we don't get reimbursed from the state until the prisoners are sent to TDC. Am I correct, Sheriff?
Right.
And it's like 6 months down the road before we ever get our money back from the state for those prisoners.
Why is that etched in stone? That doesn't need to be etched in stone. Let's get that changed. I'm sure there are 255 other counties that would appreciate that.
I know if you owe the state money, they want it right now. Or there's penalties and interest. But if they owe us money,
Oh,
we'll
you may
get around
see it,
to
you
it.
may
We'll
not.
get around to
Is
it.
there a list somewhere that exists of those continual problems between
Can that data be shared?
county and state?
Would it be included in the general recording process? If you file with the state?
Is how much money they have reimbursed.
Or a list of unfunded mandates, I mean,
That list is so long,
that's just gotta be.
But that's okay.
goes on and on.
Yeah,
I think
that's
that's.
gotta be
fine.
what
If
every.
the list is long and the list, ends up that,
county
the
faces.
county's constantly, $2, $3, $5 million in getting paid in arrears on this. Let's go shake some trees and see if something can happen.
It'd be worth it doing it. But this is on the agenda for right now, though.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we can talk about the what ifs and shall be and could be and all that, but,
But it is a budgeting issue.
yes, sir. This is a budgeting and a timing issue that just be done today. So we got to come up with whatever we're going to do.
What rate do you say, Judge?
What's on the agenda? is
5173,
Yes, sir.
okay. Katy Perry, you said 5173,
Yes, sir.
What was the rate you came up with the other day, James?
5045.
That's what I'm talking
Huh?
about. That's what I'm talking about.
May I ask which fund you want to take that from? Because don't forget, you still have your debt that you have to pay back for the courthouse restoration that was voted on.
It's either come out of bridge and road or flood. Here's your, pick your poison. With $4 diesel hauling fuel, hauling rock. Motor grader, they're $267,000 each. Pull that one out of your hat. We ain't got it. We just reduce and renew. That's what I used to do with my banker. But, we just do the best we can with what we got to work with.
Excuse me, this is for the auditor, but what fund would it be? General revenue for part-time labor and miscellaneous? I
Part-time
think the
labor,
code is-
yeah, part-time labor is also with Road and Bridge, but the majority of your part-time labor is from elections.
But I'm saying that those funds are generally spent. I was looking at one budget to the other, it seemed like there was past years we didn't spend as much as the current budget.
That's correct.
asked for.
The last 2 years, we haven't spent as much as because of COVID.
Yeah, okay, I understand. And the same thing with miscellaneous.
Okay, back to square one. Oh, go ahead, Jim.
I'm sorry, the codes that are at the side, like, for instance, for part-time labor, whichever, I'm trying to understand that the Department of 560,
That's the sheriff's
560,
department.
and then 114 is part-time labor in that department.
That is
So every
correct.
time 114 appears, if it's in a different first three numbers, it's a different.
That is correct.
Okay.
All right. Anybody else? Anybody want to make a statement regarding this proposed rate, which is what is on the agenda? Once.
So we can't change this. We either have to approve it or not approve it, or can we change it?
If we change the tax rate, we're gonna have to send out another public notice. We're gonna have to do another public hearing, and Mike's gonna have to go back and recalculate everything.
What kind of time frame are we looking at? Deadline,
End of the month.
Yeah, by the end of the month.
end of September,
20th of September.
the 20th, not the end, the 20th.
Sorry, not the end of the month. Don't know if we have time to do that.
Does your program allow you to just type in the different number and all the other calculations change automatically?
Well, because of the way we post stuff, that number is black and white, okay? Now, I'm not saying we couldn't change it. I don't know that we could. I mean, the state's not said you may, okay? But whether we could change that or not, I don't know. I don't know. We've never done that, okay? Just put it that way.
I can change any number in there, sure can.
But I meant if you change the tax rate number, the rest of the numbers, like QuickBooks automatically change.
Everything changes, sure does.
But you don't have to individually enter it.
Some of them do, some of them, but yeah, it has to be
It's
addressed.
more than just changing the tax rate.
Yeah,
Oh.
and with that being said, I can't keep it shut anymore, so here it comes. The rest of it is, y'all gone down to the 11th hour on this thing, and you got everybody in the squeeze, and you're wanting to arbitrarily, no, not arbitrarily, you're wanting to change it just to feel good. You want to back it up just a little bit. I would remind you that last year, when they still had the same constraints, they took into consideration everything that was done, and they came in and they didn't adopt the VA on it. They went less than that. When they didn't have to, and they did it when the city didn't do it. They've done it every year consistently. When it went to 3.5, that's where they stayed. There was some places that by resolution or by design of the system were able to stay at the 8% bump. The city was one of them for 2 years. This is the first year they hadn't had the option to do that, and now they're not doing it. Okay, well, they didn't have an option to go up that high.
I think it throws a lot of, I would say disrespect to come in here at this time. I didn't see, they worked on this for 100 days on this budget. They worked hard, they looked at everything they had. They did long-term considerations as far as knowns, made allowance for unknowns. That's good business. You didn't show up, you didn't go to the sale and spend every dime you had on the couch.
That's right.
And then come home, well, I ain't got enough money for feed. That may be oversimplifying things, but it's the same thing as, and I would also remind you, come January 1st, the brain trust is going back to work in Austin on Congress Avenue down here, and we don't know what they're gonna do. And buddy, let me tell you something, you bet your bitches they're gonna be doing something. And whether that's gonna be to our benefit or their, for their political asset or whatever agenda that they might have, they'll be doing something, whether it's right or wrong. And the fact that just come in here and say, there's been a lot of effort that went into this, and I know y'all can appreciate that. But I'm saying that you start pulling those numbers in here and you stump your toe on one thing. I can tell you where that money comes off the top. It comes right off the top of the salary people. That's the first place cut. That's where the city cut. They made some cuts. I understand. I didn't talk to Connie and ask it, but I understand they did. And they're counting on sales tax revenue to continue increasing. Okay. Well, everybody is. It's tax. Okay. Pick your poison. You're paying. If you're participating, you're gonna be paying taxes. Yeah, it is. But understand that I don't want anyone to discount the effort that's gone in from these people and everyone throughout the county that has come in here and participated and listened to know what is actually going on. I'll drop that right there. I'll just remind you that there was a vocal big majority in here last time when we had this meeting. Everybody naysayed the rate. They came back in and we republished and corrected that so everybody would know. When it came time to vote on the budget, out that door, nobody knows.
Nobody stayed.
Nobody said anything about the budget. Well, if you don't know what you're spending the money for, you don't know how much money you need. So I suggest that maybe a point where you are right now, and just the fact that you're going to shave something here a little bit just so everybody can feel good about it. I don't think that's necessarily going to be your best sound business, and it's going to create more paperwork, more effort in here for the auditor, for everybody. This is what we do. We're going to do our job. We got hired and elected to do it. We're going to do it in spite of whatever the conditions are, and that's the way we've been doing it. But I'm telling you, for the last few years, this whole thing has been operating. There hasn't been any extra in here. It's been red ink and deficits to be taken care of.
And my point earlier about pie charts, we're talking about 370 people or something. Let's think about it this way. How much does the difference in these rates we're talking about right here mean on $100,000? Or, that makes it so easy. If it's $12.
$14.60, I think. So. How am I doing?
1940 is what you're hearing.
You've got $19.40.
$19.40. How's that?
So when you put it in that term, it's minimal, why would we worry about that?
Right, 100,000.
Less than $20.
It's easier to figure out how much this than it is. in
That's
dollars.
it's what you spend at Taco Shop for. your
Yeah,
family.
right.
That's what we're talking about.
Now you talk country,
Yeah.
it's digestible.
Yeah.
When you're talking that way, people understand what you're saying instead of all these 5.17s and all that people don't comprehend. You say if you got $100,000, the home is worth $100,000, it's gonna go up 19, whatever it was, as Mike said. People understand that.
Yeah,
They can
that's
digest
the
that.
basic idea. So pass your budget and go on.
if what I'm getting out of this is the need of the increased revenues is mostly high-end, gonna take care of gaining and retaining good quality help and gaining and retaining the facility over there.
I don't agree with that.
That's not it?
That's not what I'm saying. If you're talking to me, I.
No,
I
I,
answer it.
personnel are getting raised. Our low wage officers are moving on because it's just a resume bump. They go somewhere else and I'm hearing we need to give them more money to
I
keep.
do agree with that.
And that's what I'm saying. And I don't know if that-
And we did.
But there are more employees than there are in just the jail. You need to understand your entire totality of budget does not go to that jail.
Right.
That's not the only game in town.
Right.
This courthouse, the lights are on, there's offices in every floor. The precinct barns have employees everywhere. The probation department has employees. The annexes have employees, where Mike Dowd's building down there, they've got employees. So all roads don't lead to that jail over there. They're just giving you an example of some of your taxpaying dollars being spent, that there's a lot of money going over there to that direction.
What I'm offering is that's a plus. To me, that's a positive. That's a positive. Gaining and retaining good quality folks.
When we're down 25% on our workforce, I think that dictates it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure there's a problem.
Right.
And so if you can hire our people away that are already trained, see, there's a little difference, and I really don't want to get up there and do all that talking. But let's go back to the state again. Every position over there, you have to have a state certification. Everything about that across the Mason-Dixon line over there, if you wanted to use that term, which I really don't want to, but I've heard it before, is a scenario where from the hiring, from the application, start with application. I think ours is 40 some odd pages. What's it for any other entity in county government? 1 page? Then background investigations. They're not required anywhere else except across that street. All those things cost money. Those are not free services. You have to have an employee designated to do that. Then education. You have to go through, up to some of the mandates. They go for physical, they go in for a psychological, which is not required in other areas of county government. All that costs money. Polygraph examination, and I can go on and on. You fail one of those factors, you're out. Then policies and procedures that go and mandates that go along with that position. And so now you come to a situation and you say, okay, we're going to give you X number of dollars to work at the Navarro County Sheriff's Office. Then you can pop over 2 streets to the Course County Police Department and they can make $10,000 more because they got a STEM program. I challenge you, that officer, the same officer right across the street over there, that he would be two blocks across the street. But because they have aggressive funding over there, they're able to offer STEP programs and things. And just because you stay with us 10 years, you make $10,000 more than you do at the county. That'll draw somebody to get on that pogo stick and jump across the street. And I'm not saying anything bad about Course County. I'm glad that they offer that to their employees in the police department. What I'm talking about exists in Ellis County, Kaufman County, Dallas County, just about any county you want to talk about. Is they're drawing our people away because of salary, and people work for money. It's the same principle that these guys are talking about, is too much money at the end of the month in the budget. That's what I'm hearing you say. So you've got to do something. As the county judge said earlier today, he said it exactly correct. If you think it costs some money over there today to run that facility, you need to think about what it would cost to close that facility and to send those prisoners to other locations. It's astronomical. All I'm saying is this: all roads toward the budget don't funnel to that facility over there. There's more areas to look at other than that's the one that's up here on the total bill.
Yeah.
But you gotta pay your employees. That's the secret to success, no matter where they work. If they work for Mike Dowd, if they work for Eddie Moore, or they work for Elmer Tanner, the secret to success is hiring, training, and retaining qualified employees.
And my entire point was kind of on the positive side of what they were offering was to make it a better place for people to stay, whether they work.
Yes, sir. I'm all in for that, because we're 25 people short. That's 25% of our workforce, and that's getting to a critical situation.
But anyway, my main point from my understanding was the wish for more revenues was mostly for gaining and retaining good folks and the cost of business there. I'm still not saying I like a tax increase. I'm just offering that I'm trying to understand the value that you're putting on the increases of my $20. The increase that you're asking me to pony up.
We'd like one time to be able to get a salary commensurate to where we could recruit a trained, qualified individual from a different
That'd be
county
good.
or a different city to come here because of salary. But unfortunately, we've not been able to do that yet.
Okay.
And like Alan Jackson's song says, all it takes is money. And what we're talking about here is $19.40, 100,000. And I see a lot of flag waving and trumpet blowing and in the grand scheme of things, we can start talking about the 0.0645s and the 0.5173s and the 0.0875s and the $100 million and the guys, what it means is for us to take a lower tax rate, we're gonna have to reduce some services because we have to remain solvent as a business. And if we don't do that, then this commissioner's court right here is incompetent. And I'd rule myself incompetent if I can't budget enough money to operate my business. And I know it's a lot of money, but like I said, what we come up with is $19.40 per 100,000. And I'll pay it to keep the deputies rolling, to keep the road crews out there fixing the roads, and to keep the clerks a-clerking. Whatever the clerks do, they're clerk. But it's mandatory. It's mandatory that we store documents perpetually. And so as the perpetual storage goes, we need more real estate. And this is, we could go on. And like I said, I could play the did you know game about things I've learned in the last 6 years that the state requires us to do, and it takes money. And to come down on the rate, like James said, 14%, and we come down on it every year, to me, it's a win for myself. Because what I spend at Taco Shop, I'll give that a year. You know, as from my personal taxes.
That's all you spend?
As per visit.
Ron?
Yeah, so like Mike, I was sitting over quietly now, but I've decided I am going to throw the 2 cents in. And I may be unpopular by saying this, but I'm in support of VAR, and here's why. Because Mike alluded to this a little bit, but we haven't talked about the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and that's the budget as a whole. And the fact that you guys have been working on this for over 3 months. And while I'm glad to see everybody show up at the last meeting and today, like Mike said, when we started talking about the budget, and did anybody want to discuss the budget, go through it line item, there wasn't anybody else in here that wanted to do that. And I wasn't here for every budget workshop. I sat through several of them. And I didn't see many people here then. And so what I would tell everybody is that I'm glad you're getting involved in the process because that's how this thing works. But get in the process next year when we start working on the budget so that you can have your voices heard. Because right now, you know, yes, we want public safety, and yes, a big chunk of this budget goes to the sheriff's department and law enforcement and keeping that jail running. But there's another big portion, and Eddie talked about it a little bit, but yes, diesel has gone up, and so is asphalt, and so is rock. And What is everybody out that lives out in the county, what do they want? They want a nice road to their house. You know, I'm blessed because I've got a commissioner that I've seen him fixing potholes on a Saturday morning by himself out on my road. Because somebody had called him and reported there was a pothole. And I know every one of these other commissioners do the same thing. You know, they've got hundreds of miles of road that they have to maintain.
422.
Exactly. I knew you could give me the number. And that costs money. To do a small patch on that Navarro slab out from the airport out to Navarro cost over $18,000 last year. And that was just patching several spots in it. That wasn't a total retop of that whole road. Roads are expensive and everybody wants them. Everybody wants theirs to be in good shape. They don't want potholes on their roads. And keeping those roads maintained costs money. And so for less than what I spend on my family of 5 at McDonald's, which is what this tax rate's gonna do on my house, I'm happy to give up one day at McDonald's so that that jail runs, so that the county runs, our legal system runs, all the county services run, and the road stay good. So.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, sir. Okey doke, I think it's down to the final wire. Item number 6. We ready to do this, guys? Real thing with your calculator. Consideration of approving the adoption of the 2022 tax rate of 0.5173 per $100 of taxable valuation. I will make the motion that we go forward with that. Would ask for a second.
I'll second.
And we need to take a record vote. Precinct 1, how do you vote?
No.
Precinct 2,
Yes.
precinct 3,
Yes.
precinct 4,
No,
and judge votes yay. So budget is approved 3-2. Now, I'm gonna read this other part to
Good
you.
judge, give me just a second.
Okay.
Guys, I was extremely torn. I mean, we put 90 days, 100 days into this thing. And we come down here and spend all day down here working numbers back and forth, going back and forth. And we come down to the deal. And here we are. Somebody wants to start completely over. And I appreciate that because I'm a taxpayer too. And next year, that's going to be a goal. The no new revenue rate will be our goal next year. But we had so much invested into this thing to throw it all away and start over $19.40. And thank y'all so much for coming. And thank you, Chris, for bringing this to everybody's attention, what goes on. Too bad they didn't come down for the last 90 days and help us with this deal. Because this is the hardest thing I ever done. I've been on that corner down there 48 years fixing cars. This is the hardest thing I've ever done. So, thank y'all.
Thanks, sir. This order adopting the tax rate for 2021. Let's keep it 2022. Okay, on this 9th day of September of 2022 came to be considered the tax rate for 2022, and it appearing to the Commissioners Court that said tax rate has been duly calculated in accordance with law by the county tax assessor collector, and all required public notices fully filed, and the said tax rate having been duly considered by the court on motion made, seconded, and carried, it is ordered by the court that the said tax rate be and is hereby approved and adopted as follows. The general fund rate shall be 0.4123 per $100 valuation. The road and bridge rate shall be 0.0875 per $100 valuation. The flood control rate shall be 0.0072 per $100 valuation. All properties with homestead exemption only will receive a $3,000 exemption on flood control assessment. The flood control rate is not subject to abatement. The debt service rate shall be 0.0103 per $100 valuation. The total tax rate shall be 0.5173 per $100 valuation. The county shall grant an over 65 of 15,000 exemption on all properties with a homestead exemption. The county shall grant a tax freeze for disabled and 65 and older homeowners passed by the Commissioners Court July 9th of 2004. This tax rate will raise more taxes for maintenance and operations than last year's tax rate. The tax rate will effectively be raised by 4.89% and will raise taxes for maintenance and operations on a $100,000 home by approximately $19.40 per 100,000. Passed and approved this 9th day of September, 2022. Gentlemen, need signatures on there.
So it's just like the budget, and they just don't sign it. do they?
I wrote nay and signed it.
Yeah, I think you could sign it and just put name.
They could fax me out.
Right, shows that you were here at least. Duh. Okay, we need one more motion, gentlemen.
I make a motion to adjourn. Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Grant, seconded by Commissioner Perry to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye. And we stand adjourned. Thank y'all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I have a- Does the city give out over 65 exemptions?
It does not. I pushed for homestead exemptions this year. Couldn't get anybody else.
And disabled? They don't get this. Thank you.
That's our next fight. Our next fight. That's the next fight. And the city